What's up guys, my name is Stoody and I'd like to welcome you all back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be doing my round 6 tips for the 2024 AFL season. Before we get into this week's tips, let's go ahead and see how I went last week. So last week I got 6 out of 8 correct tips, which moves me up to 34 correct tips for the season. So let's go and see what ones I got correct and what ones I got incorrect. So here are the correct tips. I tipped Melbourne to beat Brisbane. That tip does count as correct due to match fixing. I tipped the GWS Giants to beat St Kilda. I tipped Gold Coast to beat Hawthorn. I tipped Port Adelaide to beat Fremantle. I tipped Geelong to beat North Melbourne. And I tipped Richmond to beat West Coast. However, that tip does count due to that game being rigged as well. So that means the two I got incorrect were that I tipped the Western Bulldogs to beat Essendon and I tipped Carlton to beat Adelaide. Anyway, let's just get into this week's tips. Tonight, Thursday night football, we have St Kilda taking on the Western Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium, going to be between the Western Bulldogs in this one by 25 points. Western Bulldogs are just clearly the better team. St Kilda are overhyped, overrated. The Dogs somehow lost to Essendon last week. I don't know if that game was rigged. That's why I didn't count the tip as correct, because I fell asleep about 10 minutes into the second quarter. Yeah, it's a bit difficult watching night games when you start at 3 o'clock in the morning at work every day. So, yeah, I don't know what happened to the Dogs last week, but I think they should be able to bounce back against that, a pretty shit St Kilda side. And moving on to Friday night, we have Adelaide taking on Essendon at Adelaide Oval. I'm going to tipping Adelaide in this one by 27 points. They finally got their first win of the season against Carlton last week. I mean, they're definitely better than what their 1-4 record suggests. So I think they'll start getting some wins on the board. Essendon are really up and down. One week they look pretty good. The next week they look terrible. Like last week they looked pretty good against the Western Bulldogs. The week before they looked terrible against Adelaide. So just 2 weeks ago they got smashed in Adelaide. I don't think they'll get smashed obviously, but maybe Adelaide, the Adelaide Oval might be a bogey ground for them. I don't know. But yeah, I think Adelaide at home is the safe option here. Moving on to Saturday afternoon, we have Collingwood taking on Port Adelaide at the MCG. I'm going to win Collingwood in this one by 7 points. Port Adelaide are in some pretty good form. Collingwood, they've had a bad start to the year, but they should be able to bounce back. So I think Collingwood will win this one in a close one. They love a close game. We all know that from Collingwood. So yeah, it's at home for Collingwood. They seem to be able to beat Port all the time. So yeah, Port just don't seem to be able to beat Collingwood. That's why I'm going to go with Collingwood in this one, and home ground advantage is always big. Moving on to Saturday twilight, we have Carlton taking on the GWS Giants at Marvel Stadium. I'm going to be tipping Carlton in this one by 9 points, mainly because GWS have a couple of injuries. And they've got Caniglio out and they've got Taylor out, so those are two big outs for the Giants. Carlton, they're starting to get some players back. Walsh is back in the team. He was on fire last week against Adelaide in a losing effort. So I think at home, I think Carlton will be able to take advantage here. Home ground advantage is massive, and GWS, they're due for a loss. They almost lost to St Kilda. Well, that was due to match fixing, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, I just think Carlton are going to get the job done here. Moving on to Saturday night, we have Brisbane taking on Geelong at the Gabba. I'm going to be doing Brisbane in this one by 5 points. Geelong look back, but home ground advantage for the Lions, I think will prove too much for Geelong. Both severely protected teams, but at home, surely Brisbane are the ones that will be protected. So yeah, this one can go either way. That's why I've only tipped a 5-point margin. So it's anyone's game, but I'm just going with the home team because I guess that's the popular option. Moving on to the other Saturday night game, we have Fremantle taking on West Coast at Optus Stadium in the Western Derby. I'm going to tipping Fremantle in this one by 150 points. West Coast had to use the match fixing to their advantage last week to beat a VFL team. So they definitely didn't deserve to win that game last week. Fremantle just clear the way better team. So I expect Fremantle to put West Coast back in their place on Saturday night. Moving on to Sunday, we have Sydney taking on the Gold Coast Suns at the SCG. I'm going to tipping Sydney in this one by 16 points. The Suns, for some reason, have a really good record against Sydney at the SCG, but I don't think that'll matter this time around. But I feel like I say that every time these two teams face. But I think Sydney are the obvious one. I think they're the better team. I do think if Gold Coast are to get the job done, it'll be due to match fixing. So, yeah, I think Sydney in this one, not by a huge margin to be a competitive game, but I think Sydney at home should get the job done. Now, moving on to Sunday twilight, we have North Melbourne taking on Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium. Going to be North Melbourne in this one by 11 points. I just think North Melbourne are the better team at the moment. Hawthorn have some injury issues, and they're not in very good form, the Hawks. I mean, North aren't in that great of form, but they have had some tough opponents. They finally have a winnable game here. North, it's at their home ground, so I think North are the better team. They've got some really good young players on their list. I reckon in a few years, North are going to be a really good team. There's no way they won't win a premiership with this list. Like, they have an insanely good young list. They just have a few holes that they need to fill, and as their players get a little bit more experience, they will explode. But as for this week, I think North will get the job done against Hawthorn. So those are my tips for round 6. Feel free to leave your tips in the comment section down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment for more like this. Be sure to subscribe to my main channel. Link to that is in the description. It's only a few more weeks until I get to post on my main channel again, May 9th, so stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to join my Discord server, eDiscord Australian Sports Community. Link to that is also in the description. Also, be sure to follow me on my other social media accounts. I have Instagram, I have Twitter, and also have TikTok. The username for all those is StoodyYT, and links to all those will also be in the description. I hope you had a good day, and I'll see you all in the next video.